They told me not to wear black, said it was a wedding, not a funeral. But no one noticed when I walked out of the boutique with a navy blue dress, pressed silk, collar high, heels sharp enough to cut. I had already buried something that day, and it wasn't joy. My name is Harper. I'm the older sister, the invisible one. It was a Thursday when I found out I wasn't invited to the wedding I paid for. Not directly, of course. That would have required confrontation. Instead, I found out, through silence, one that rang louder than any accusation. The invitations had already been mailed. My name had simply vanished. I stared at the RSVP list Ava sent Mom. She thought I wouldn't see. My name was gone. But my bank transfers were very much intact. I didn't call her right away. I waited. 2 days passed before I sent her a message. "No invite? Must have gotten lost in the mail." She replied in under 10 seconds. Ava. "Oh, Harp. Don't take it personally. It's just a super tight guest list. You know how Dan's family is. Old money. They want it elegant. Intimate." I read that word twice. Intimate. The wedding had 187 guests. Ava. Again. Plus, it's not really your thing, right? Black tie, champagne towers, stuffy people talking stock options. That message sat there on my screen like a loaded gun. She didn't forget me. She erased me. With intent. I didn't reply. Didn't even block her. I just let the conversation rot there like overripe fruit. Sometimes silence screams louder than rage. That night, I went out to the greenhouse. My crew had gone home hours earlier, but I wasn't there to work. I just stood between the orchids and the rosemary walls, breathing in the scent of something pure, something that grew no matter who dismissed it. My business had built itself, one root at a time. A landscaping company no one believed in until I proved them wrong. Until the clients stopped being neighbors and became tech CEOs and restaurant groups. Until my name started appearing in design magazines Ava pretended not to read. They called her the Golden Daughter. They called me passionate. That was the family's way of saying strange without saying it. Ava curated a life. I built one with my bare hands. But that night, something snapped. I opened my financial app and tallied the wedding transfers. $3,200 for the venue deposit, $12,500 for catering, $9,000 for Ava's designer gown, flown in from Milan. Even $2,800 for a swan rental, which I didn't know existed until I was asked to cover it. Total, $51,370. Not including the surprise honeymoon upgrade Ava had sweet-talked out of me 2 weeks earlier. I funded her dream. And in return, she closed the door in my face. I sat in the garden room with a glass of whiskey and stared at the moss wall I'd installed last month. A commission for an art collector. It cost less than Ava's dress, but it would live longer. I wanted to scream. But instead, I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Something else. Something quieter. The next morning, I called my mother. "Hey, Mom. Did you want me to arrange extra heaters for the garden tent? It gets chilly in late October." Silence on the line. Then, "Oh, sweetheart. Ava thought it might be simpler if you didn't come." My fingers clenched around the coffee mug, hard enough that I thought it might crack. Mom continued, as if explaining weather to a child. "You know how these things are. There's family, and then there's image. We're trying to keep things smooth with Dan's side." "Right," I said. "And I'm the wrinkle. Don't make this about you." But it was, because no one else had written the checks. No one else had sacrificed 3 weekends of their fall schedule to help coordinate catering tastings and vendor meetings. No one else had offered support when Ava cried over linen patterns. I had never been in the wedding photos. Just the invoices. I smiled. It must have scared her because she added quickly, "We appreciate everything you've done, Harper. You're such a generous soul. And there it was, a compliment. It sounded like grace. But it was the key in the back door of betrayal. That evening, I went back to the greenhouse, not to think, to act. I made 2 calls. First to a local performance florist I'd partnered with for seasonal installations. She owed me a favor. I asked for access to Ava's final bouquet plans, claimed I wanted to send a matching arrangement. She emailed the file in less than 10 minutes. The second call was to a woman named Sandra, who used to work as Ava's personal assistant during her influencer rise. Sandra had signed an NDA, but she also had a broken lease and an overdue medical bill. We talked. I wired her rent. Within the hour, I had a copy of Ava's wedding itinerary, down to the second, including notes about who she didn't want in the frame. One line hit me like a cold slap. Harper Dutch, risk to visual cohesion. Do not seat near bridal party, risk to cohesion. My hand hovered over the delete key. But I didn't delete it. I printed it out, folded it, and slipped it into my jacket. 3 days later, Ava posted a sweet Instagram story. Her with mom, tasting cakes. The caption read, "Family is everything." The next story was a reposted, quote, "Let the people who bring you peace be your circle." It got 1,436 likes. She didn't tag me. I took a screenshot and saved it to a folder I created that night. I labeled it, Evidence. At 2 a.m., I drove out to a barn 20 minutes from my office. I had received a tip about it from an old client, an eccentric woman who rented animals for movie sets. I walked past goats and ponies. At the end of the row was a creature with a pink bow between its ears. "Meet Clementine," the woman said. "Fur." "Photogenic?" I asked. The woman grinned. "She knows how to find the camera, and she loves crowds." I didn't smile back. "I want her at a wedding," I said, "but not for photos, for presents." The woman studied me. "You trying to make a point?" "No," I replied. "I'm trying to return a favor." She nodded slowly, as if she understood, as if she'd done it herself once. I handed over the deposit. By the time I returned home, I had 4 missed calls from Dad. I didn't answer, but I knew why he was calling. Ava must have mentioned the florist had reached out to my sister for matching decor. A crack had formed. I went to bed at 4:30 a.m., fully clothed, phone silent, heart steady. The next morning, my assistant found me at the nursery before opening. She held out a letter. "Courier dropped this off. It's from your grandfather's attorney." I froze. The envelope was heavy. Real ink. No email. I didn't open it. Not yet, because something in me already knew. They didn't just want to erase me from Ava's day. They had been erasing me for years. But now I was awake, and I wasn't going anywhere. They say the worst betrayals don't come with knives. They come with invitations that never arrive, and family smiles that rot beneath the surface. I didn't need more proof that Ava had erased me. I already had it. But something about the ease with which they all accepted it, the quiet complicity, the confidence that I wouldn't push back, that was what I couldn't forgive. 3 nights after my mother's call, I sat alone in my studio office surrounded by blueprints and potted succulents. I had a scotch in one hand and Ava's wedding itinerary open on my laptop. Sandra, her former assistant, had delivered more than I expected. Full schedules, guest list details, backup seating charts. She even attached a Dropbox folder labeled Media with Ava's PR mood board, a collection of Pinterest pins and brand collaborations she hoped to tag from her own wedding day. All of it polished, gleaming, none of it real. And tucked into the guest list notes was a detail I might have missed, had I not read every line like a confession, a section marked Back of House Logistics. A bridesmaid had dropped out just a week earlier. Appendicitis. Apparently, there was a note. Spot TBD, match size 6, no visible tattoos. I read that line twice. Then I smiled. By morning, I had already made the call. Lena, my assistant, was hesitant when I told her. "You sure you want to get that close, Harper? Could blow up." "That's the point," I said, "but only when I say so." I contacted Ava's planner using a new email, crafted a backstory as the bridesmaid's cousin stepping in as a favor. I sent a portfolio of smiling, nondescript photos. None of them were mine. They didn't ask for a video call. Ava's planner approved. The swap within 24 hours. Apparently, family names hold more weight than faces when your entire life is staged. The next afternoon, I met a woman named Maya in a parking lot behind a dress boutique. She worked part-time at a costume warehouse. I handed her a manila envelope and $300 in cash. Inside the envelope was a signed agreement, a copy of the fake ID I had crafted, and a receipt for a bridesmaid dress I would never wear. I wasn't planning to be on stage. I just needed the pass. The plan was never about spectacle. It was about proximity. If they had kept me in the audience, I might have just watched the show burn from a distance. But now? Now I would light the fuse from inside the curtain. The florist was the next move. I called Karina, a quiet Colombian woman I'd worked with twice on installations for rooftop weddings. She owed me a favor. I asked her for Ava's bouquet order under the guise of sending a matching arrangement. She forwarded it within minutes. I tweaked it. Just one ingredient. Not enough to be traced, but enough to create discomfort. The lilies I chose looked beautiful. But under heat? They emitted a smell faintly reminiscent of mildew. It wouldn't ruin the photos, but it would haunt the memory. Meanwhile, I began preparing Clementine. I told people I was sponsoring a pet therapy pop-up at a school fair. No one questioned why a landscape architect would be hauling a trained pig in the back of her truck. Clementine belonged to an old client, Gwen, a retired theater director, who ran a sanctuary for rescued animals and occasionally rented them out for indie films. Clementine was smart, clean, and trained to walk on cue. She'd even been taught to respond to her name when called sweetly. Gwen was amused when I explained what I wanted. "Let me guess," she said. "Ava still thinks pigs are unclean. Energy?" "She used to cry when she saw one at the county fair," I said. "Said they ruined the aesthetic." Gwen shook her head. "And now she's marrying a man who probably eats foie gras at brunch." I said nothing. She handed me Clementine's schedule, diet plan, and a handler's business card. I booked the pig under a false name and marked it as an interactive organic installation. But the moment that shifted everything came not from planning, but from omission. I stopped responding to my mother. It began with her usual texts. "Have you seen Ava's new bridal shoot? So elegant." Then, "We'll be at the country club this weekend. Ava and Dan are meeting as cousins. Want to join?" Then, "Heard you've been distant. Are you okay?" I didn't reply, and that silence did more than my words ever could. It made her nervous, which made her careless. 3 days later, a courier dropped off a box at my office. Inside was a ribbon-wrapped envelope with gold lettering. I opened it slowly, expecting a peace offering. It was an NDA, confidentiality, regarding unofficial involvement in pre-wedding operations, sent not by Ava, but by her fiancé's legal team. I scanned it twice. Then saw the clause, acknowledgement of sponsorship in exchange for non-disclosure of role or financial contributions. They wanted me quiet, invisible, erased. I didn't sign it. Instead, I faxed it to my lawyer, added a note. Hold for public interest. By now, the game had changed. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was building a mirror, one so clear they'd flinch at their own reflection. Then, one night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. It came again an hour later. I picked up. "Harper?" The voice was quiet, hesitant. "Male. This is Noah. Ava's fiancé. I'm sorry to call. I know it's awkward. My spine straightened. What do you want? There was a pause. I just wanted to say, thank you. For the upgrades, the hotel, the dress. Ava told me you helped. That meant a lot. I said nothing. Let him keep talking. I know you won't be at the wedding. I tried to talk her into it, but what? I asked, voice steady. He hesitated. She said, it wouldn't look right, that you'd feel out of place. I thought that was strange. You two seemed close in the pictures she showed me. I closed my eyes. Pictures lie. I'm starting to realize that, he said. A beat of silence passed. Then he cleared his throat. Anyway, just wanted you to know, from me, not everyone's. Blind, that was his final line before hanging up, but what he didn't know was that I'd recorded the call. Not for blackmail, for clarity, for evidence. The kind of truth you need to hold in your hand when the world insists you're delusional, and I knew something else. He was beginning to doubt her. The seeds were already planted. I wouldn't have to pull them. They'd grow on their own. I didn't sleep that night, not out of anger, but because for the first time, I wasn't just reacting, I was creating a new narrative. One Ava wouldn't be able to delete. The bridesmaid dress fit too well. It was borrowed off the rack, but when I zipped it up in the fitting room, it clung like it had been waiting. The kind of perfect fit that didn't feel like luck. It felt like alignment. I looked at myself in the mirror under soft lighting, standing in the fabric that was never meant for me. My name wouldn't be printed on the program, but my silhouette would be in every photo. Ava had wanted me out of the frame. I had just found a way back in. I'd been given the dress by the boutique under the alias I'd registered with Ava's planner. Claire Harmon. No one checked ID. They had a copy on file, one I'd doctored well enough to pass. Claire was supposedly the cousin of Ava's former college roommate, filling in last minute to keep the bridal party number even. The planner even thanked me in her email for being flexible and discreet. I didn't reply. The ceremony was 4 days away. I had spent the last week laying bricks no one saw. The slideshow company Ava hired? Their freelance video editor used to be a client of mine. Her backyard transformation had landed me a design award 3 years ago. I reached out to catch up, asked who was doing the final rendering for Ava's wedding highlight reel. She offered me a copy of the draft to give feedback as a family member. I watched it twice. The third time, I inserted a flash. 2 seconds. A photo of the invoice for Ava's gown, with my signature at the bottom. Not enough for the naked. But frame by frame, it would be there. Paused, frozen in digital memory, long after the vows. The editor didn't notice. She was too busy color-correcting Ava's hair to match the champagne palette. Meanwhile, I paid a courier to deliver a handwritten card to my parents. Elegant, ivory paper. Inside, it said only, "Thanks for teaching me the cost of silence." No name, no return address. 2 days later, Dad called. I didn't answer. They didn't know where I was, what I was doing. But they were beginning to realize something was wrong. Or rather, something was no longer under control. I visited the venue the night before the rehearsal, posing as part of the florist's advance team. Karina, loyal as ever, vouched for me at the gate. I wore a branded shirt from my own company. Hair tied back, no makeup, clipboard in hand. The kind of woman no one paid attention to. The kind of woman I'd been my whole life around them. I walked every inch of the outdoor garden space, memorized where the cameras were, noted the position of the sweetheart table, the light angles, the path from the ceremony arch to the dance floor. I even adjusted one of the garden installations Ava had requested, a hedge wall spelling "forever" in white roses. I swapped 4 letters. No one noticed. It still read "forever." But underneath, stitched into the green backing, invisible unless under the right light, funded by the forgotten, It was petty, but it wasn't for them. It was for me. On the day of the rehearsal, I arrived at the venue 3 hours early under the guise of floral prep. The bridesmaids showed up scattered, distracted, all in matching silk robes. No one looked twice at me. I stayed out of Ava's eyeline until she asked for water. Her voice carried over the hum of chatter. "Someone grab a bottle? My throat's dying." I picked one up, walked to her, handed it over. She took it without looking. "Thanks." I stood there a second too long. She looked up. Her hand froze on the bottle. Our eyes met. I watched the recognition bleed in, slow and horrified, like watching someone remember a nightmare they thought they'd outgrown. "Harper?" I didn't blink. "Claire Harmon," I corrected. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" "Filling in," I said calmly. "You're short one bridesmaid, remember?" Her jaw tightened. "You're not—" I stepped forward, just enough to lower my voice. "You invited everyone, but the one who paid for it. You thought I'd stay quiet, smile for photos I wasn't allowed in. Not this time." She looked around. No one was watching. They were laughing by the mimosa table. The planner was checking napkin placements. Mom was on a phone call by the hedges. Ava and I were invisible. "You can't be here," she hissed. "This is insane." "I already am," I said. "And tomorrow? I'll be closer than you think." She tried to walk past me. I sidestepped and held out my hand, not to stop her, but to offer the bouquet sample Karina had prepared. "The lilies you asked for," I said. She took it out of reflex. The smell hit her half a second later. She recoiled. "What is that?" "A memory," I said. "They used to grow outside Grandma's house." Her expression faltered, then hardened. "Get out." "You'll need to be more specific," I said. "Out of the venue? Out of the story? Or out of the family?" She said nothing. As she walked away, I saw Mom glance over from her call. I waved. She turned back around. Later that evening, I sat in my car outside the estate gates and opened a folder labeled Claire Harmon Final Backup. Inside were copies of everything, every invoice, every message, every silent rejection dressed as etiquette, and at the bottom, a copy of an old email. One I had almost forgotten, from Ava. Sent 2 years ago. Subject: Need a huge favor. Body: Harp, I'm pitching to a home decor brand and need a few pics of your installations. Can I credit you as a collaborator? It'll boost your visibility too. I had said yes. She never credited me. I added it to the wedding slideshow. Draft. The screen would fade from her vows to a montage of their courtship, and just before the first dance, it would cut briefly to that email. Her voice playing softly in the background saying, "Family is about showing up when it counts." That was the line she'd recorded in her wedding promo video. It would become the lie I let the world hear on loop. I didn't sleep that night. But I didn't need to. Warriors don't rest before battle. They wait. Watch. And when the curtain lifts, they don't blink. There was something almost reverent about how the guests moved that afternoon. The way they floated from cocktail hour to the main reception hall, draped in silk and ambition. Every movement felt choreographed, like the entire event was being staged for a magazine spread, not a marriage. Ava had gotten her dream. White orchids, string quartet, a venue that looked more Versailles than Oregon. It was everything she said I'd never understand. "Too formal for your vibe," she once laughed. I stood just out of frame, watching it all unfold through glass, invisible in plain sight. They didn't know I was already inside. I had arrived hours before the guests, under a vendor badge, dressed in black. I stayed near the catering tent, where staff came and went in a practiced blur, heads down, voices low. No one looked twice at me. The dress rehearsal from the day before had been enough to lock in my location. Every table, every speech, every spotlight moment mapped like a battlefield. Ava's voice echoed from the balcony. She was directing someone, micromanaging the champagne. Pyramid. If one glass leans, we redo the whole thing, she said. The planner, a thin woman with a headset and a clenched jaw, nodded and scribbled something down. The photographer hovered, waiting for light. Ava posed mid-laugh, hand to her hair, the sun catching her cheekbone just right. It was all so carefully constructed. By then, everything was already in place. I had handed the flash drive to the tech guy that morning. Updated edits from the couple, I'd told him. He didn't question it, just plugged it into the AV system, shrugged, and moved on. Weddings like these ran on autopilot. Too many moving parts, too many names to check. They assumed I didn't belong, so they never checked mine. As the reception filled, I slipped through the hedge wall to the back service corridor and changed. Not into a gown, not into the bridesmaid dress, into the same jeans and linen shirt I wore to every job site, the ones Ava had once called embarrassingly utilitarian. I tied my hair back into a knot, no lipstick, no jewelry, just presence. From my position behind the curtain, I could see the main stage where Ava and Noah would make their entrance. The music swelled. The MC called their names. The crowd stood. Flashbulbs popped. Ava walked in with the poise of a woman who believed the world owed her applause. I didn't clap. I moved toward the side door where Gwen was waiting. She looked up from her phone, eyes narrowing as she saw me approach. "She's here," Gwen whispered. "Right on cue." Clementine was in the transport crate, calm, breathing steady. The pink bow around her neck had been brushed. Her handler, Denny, a former animal trainer from the San Diego Zoo, stood beside her, professional, unfazed. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked me. I nodded. "Wait for the toast." He raised an eyebrow, but said nothing more. Inside, the MC tapped his mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses." Chairs slid. Crystal lifted. I gave the signal. The side door creaked. At first, no one noticed. The speech had begun, some saccharine retelling of how Ava and Noah met over spilled coffee and matching passports. But then came the shuffle, the clack of hooves, a murmur, a pause, and then the smell. It wasn't overwhelming. Just wrong, out of place. A sudden reminder that real life has edges and nature doesn't care about floral themes. The doors opened fully. Clementine stepped onto the marble, slow, deliberate, ears perked. Her handler followed, leash loose. She trotted toward the center of the reception like she owned it. Guests gasped. One woman in sequins yelped. A waiter dropped a tray of mini quiches. And then Ava saw her. Her face shifted, not fear. Not anger, confusion. Is that a... She stepped forward, dress trailing, confusion melting into horror. "Is that a pig?" She turned sharply to the planner. "Who brought that?" No answer. The screen behind her flickered. The montage had started. The crowd turned. At first it was photos. Smiling, curated. A trip to Tuscany, a yoga retreat. Then the invoice. A blink and you'll miss it slide of the gown cost, $9,000. Paid by H. Lawson, then another. Catering receipt. Then a text exchange. Ava saying, "She won't be there. Not her vibe." People shifted. Then came the quote, "Family is about showing up when it counts." A pause. Then Ava's voice, pre-recorded from her own wedding promo. "Thar's-y." Room turned ice cold. Ava froze. No. Turn that off." She ran toward the AV booth. The MC stammered. The tech looked bewildered. And Clementine? She let out a single cheerful grunt, lifted her tail, and relieved herself on the edge of the dance floor. That was the moment the silence shattered. Someone laughed, sharp, incredulous. A guest in the back muttered, "Is this part of it?" A woman at the front table dropped her wine. Ava spun, livid, screaming over the music now blaring again. "Who did this?" I stepped forward from behind the curtain. Her eyes found mine. Instantly. There was no confusion now, just recognition and panic. "You," she breathed. "You did this." I smiled. "I thought you said it was just family today." "You're insane. You're welcome. Get out of here." Noah stepped between us, not on purpose. He didn't know I was coming. But when he saw my face, he didn't look surprised, just tired. "Ava," he said carefully. "Maybe we should—" "Don't defend her," she snapped. "She's trying to destroy me." He turned to me. "What is this?" "The truth," I said. "Just the version that wasn't in the vows." He looked at the screen, now frozen on a photo of Ava's bridal shower. Behind her, in the blurry background, was me, carrying a box of flowers. Uncredited, unseen, a detail no one would have noticed, until now. Ava lunged forward. "Delete it! Delete all of it!" But the damage was done. Guests had their phones out. The video was already being uploaded. A groomsman whispered something to another. A woman in pearls turned away, shaking her head. Noah said nothing. Ava turned to our mother. "Do something!" But Mom just stood there, hand to her chest, silent. I walked out without another word. Clementine followed, her handler trailing behind, and as I crossed the lawn and stepped back into the service corridor, I heard Ava's voice break behind me. Not rage anymore, but desperation. She didn't call my name. She never had. The air outside the venue was cold in a way that felt personal. The kind of chill that settles in after something breaks and you know it won't be repaired. I sat in my truck, engine off, hands still wrapped around the steering wheel even though I hadn't moved in almost an hour. From where I parked, hidden. Behind a row of spruce trees, I could see through the floor-to-ceiling glass into the reception hall. Lights glimmered, people laughed, toasts were made, glasses clinked. It was beautiful. Precisely, sickeningly beautiful. They were celebrating on the ruins of what I built. Ava glowed in that insufferable, curated way she'd mastered. Her gown swept the polished marble like a fog bank. Dad stood at her right, glass raised. Mom just behind him, dabbing her eyes. The proud family, a framed scene, as if I had never existed. I watched the moment they toasted. It was perfect timing, because just as their flutes reached the height of their gesture, a shrill squeal cut across the hall. Not human, not rehearsed. I smiled. Clementine had arrived. Didn't need to see her entrance. I knew exactly how it would unfold. Gwen had confirmed the plan an hour ago. The timing, the path, the cue. I didn't need front row seats. This wasn't about gloating. It was about detonation. Inside, I imagined the faces shifting from delight to confusion to horror. Clementine was well trained, but she was still a pig. There was only so much she could resist. That smell would hit before anyone saw her. A pungent blend of hay, clean sweat, and something too honest for Ava's vision board. I leaned back against the headrest, eyes half closed, letting the chaos unfold unseen. Then my phone buzzed. I ignored it. Buzz. Again. Then the messages began. First from Lena, my assistant. "Whatever you did, it's going viral." She attached a link, then another, and another. By the time I opened the video, it already had 47,000 views. Someone had caught it all. The entrance, the confusion, Clementine walking straight down the aisle, past horrified guests, the bouquet of peonies in her collar, tied with satin, and then the sound. That wet, unmistakable sound of defiance hitting marble. Someone in the crowd gagged. Someone else screamed. A guest in high heels slipped trying to escape. Ava's voice cracked. Across the video feed, Get it out! Get it out! The camera caught her heels skidding in something she hadn't seen. Her hand flew to her mouth. A split second of silence, and then the crowd fractured. In the background, the screen played. On the same slideshow they'd spent thousands commissioning. It had already been tampered with. But now, paired with the chaos in the room, the meaning changed. The text overlays. Forever starts here. Built on love, surrounded by family, had become satire. I turned the volume up. The camera panned to the guests, stunned. Champagne spilled. Laughter erupted. Not at joy, but disbelief. And then, the voice I didn't expect. Noah. Standing frozen beside Ava, staring at the pig, at the mess, at the screen behind them, he said one word. Wait. Not to her. To himself. The video cut off. I sat in the silence of the cab, pulse steady. There was no elation, no high, just a low, measured sense of completion. The machine had been dismantled, and none of them could pretend otherwise. My phone rang again. It was Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Then Ava. Her message was short. You're dead to me. I listened to it twice, then deleted it. Dead meant I no longer owed her anything. No explanations, no apologies. Then a number I didn't recognize flashed on the screen. I let it ring. Then came the text. You win. I hope it was worth it. No. Name, but I didn't need one. I stared at the message for a full minute before replying, every cent. And I meant it, because what they never understood, what Ava would never admit, was that I didn't break her wedding. I revealed it. Every crack was already there, hidden beneath florals and filters and forced affection. All I did was tear down the curtain. As I turned the key in the ignition, headlights catching the edge of the tree line, I saw something unexpected. A figure standing alone just outside the venue holding a phone, not pacing, just still. Noah. He looked toward the road, not like he could see me, but like he knew someone was out there watching. He didn't move, just stared. Then he did something strange. He smiled, not cruel, not shocked, not panicked. A quiet, tired smile. Then he turned back inside. And in that moment, I knew something else had shifted. I wasn't the only one who had seen the truth behind the curtain, but I was the only one who'd planned what came next. 2 days after the wedding collapsed beneath a bouquet of lies and the hooves of a pig, I received an email with the subject line, Request for Conversation. No sender name, just a Gmail address I didn't recognize. I hovered my mouse over it, expecting spam. But when I clicked it open, it read, Harper, I need to talk to you, privately. It's about Ava. Noah. I stared at the screen for a full minute before responding. Name the place. He picked a diner 30 minutes outside Portland, a neutral zone, anonymous enough not to be recognized. I arrived early and took a booth in the back, facing the door. When he finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. No tux, no polish, just a man in a wrinkled shirt, jaw tight, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept since the wedding, and probably hadn't. He didn't. Smile. Just slid into the booth across from me and ordered black coffee without looking at the menu. For a long time, he said nothing. I owe you an apology, he said finally. I didn't respond. He sipped his coffee. Everything Ava told me about you, she framed it so casually, that you were dramatic, resentful, jealous of her success. I never thought to question it. You should have, I said flatly. I see that now. He looked me in the eye. No defense, no spin. I didn't just come here to apologize, he added. I came because things are worse than I thought. After the reception fell apart, she doubled down. Blamed everyone. The pig, the planner, her stylist, me, said I should have handled it, protected the narrative. She always did prefer the narrative over the truth, I said. She accused me of betrayal, for not shutting the whole thing down the moment it started. As if it wasn't her wedding unraveling, but mine. I told her to own it, to at least admit what she did to you. And what did she say? She told me I was lucky to be with her, that no one else would ever want someone who can't manage conflict. I didn't laugh, but I didn't look away either. She said, Noah continued, and I quote, "Harper was always disposable. I just didn't expect her to be so theatrical about it." I tilted my head. That was her mistake. He looked at me for a long time, then said quietly, "I moved out this morning." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was clarifying. Like a window opening in a house full of gas. "I saw something that night," he said. "Not just the chaos. I saw how every person looked at her differently after that pig walked in, after your name started flashing in the slideshow. People weren't horrified at you. They were horrified at her, like they realized what she'd hidden beneath the glitter." I nodded slowly. Truth is contagious, even when it smells like livestock. He almost smiled. What happens now? That's your question to answer, I said. Not mine. He looked down at his coffee. She thinks I'm staying with friends. She doesn't know I left for good. I didn't offer sympathy. She'll come for me, he said. She'll try to make me into the villain, or the fool. She'll succeed, I said, if you let her write the ending. He went quiet, then said, She always told me you envied her. She always needed someone to feel above, I replied, and she made me that someone until I stopped cooperating. Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I found this, he said, sliding it across the table. It's a printout of your initial payment to the venue. She'd written across the bottom, Keep this quiet. She'll want attention. I traced my finger across the ink. I never knew she hated me so efficiently, I murmured. She doesn't hate you, he said. She fears you. That caught me off guard. She built everything on control, people, stories, perception. But you don't play by the script. That makes you dangerous. She couldn't predict you, so she had to erase you. I folded the paper and slipped it into my coat. I'm not here to reconcile, he added. I just thought you deserved to hear it. From someone who finally saw it. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say more. Then he stood, dropped cash on the table, and walked out without another word. I watched him disappear into the parking lot, swallowed by drizzle and distance. That night, I received a message from Mom. Your sister is devastated. You need to fix this. She's falling apart. I didn't answer. 3 hours later, Ava texted me herself. You made your point. Congratulations. You humiliated me. Are you happy now? And then, a second message. You ruined everything. My brand is tanking. Sponsors are pulling out. You've destroyed my life. I stared at the screen, waiting for anything that resembled remorse. Nothing came. Not a single word that acknowledged what she had done before I acted. Just consequences. And I wasn't sorry. I was still rereading those texts when another one arrived, from an unknown number. It was a screenshot. A comment thread from a wedding video someone had uploaded to YouTube. Thousands of views. Top comment. Imagine being so fake your sister has to rent a pig to show people who you are. And below that, honestly, Harper's a legend. I didn't smile. But I saved the screenshot, not for proof, not for pride, just as a reminder. I hadn't destroyed anything that wasn't already rotten. I had simply removed the mask. 3 days of silence passed. Not a word from Ava, not a knock from Mom and Dad. But the quiet wasn't peace. It was preparation. I'd learned early that, in my family, silence didn't mean surrender. It meant they were regrouping, which made their next move inevitable. It came at 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. My phone rang. Caller ID. Mom. I stared at it for a full ring and a half before answering. Harper, she said. No greeting. Just my name, like it was already a disappointment. Morning, I replied. Her voice was brittle. Your sister is devastated. You need to come over. I leaned against the kitchen counter and said nothing. She continued. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's not sleeping. You went too far. I went quiet for months, I said calmly. That's what you all wanted. But the moment I stopped cooperating, suddenly, I'm the villain. This isn't about cooperation, she snapped. This is about family. You mean the family that excluded me from the event I paid for? There was a pause. Then the tone changed. Be the bigger person, Harper. A classic line. A weapon wrapped in moral high ground. Be quiet. Be generous. Be invisible. I ended the call. 20 minutes later, Dad texted. I don't know what's going on between you and your sister, but you humiliated this family. This has gone far enough. He'd always been efficient in his language. His loyalty lay with order, reputation, control, not people. Ava texted the same afternoon. This wasn't justice. It was cruelty. I hope you're happy being alone. I was. But just before I deleted her message, I noticed something. The name of the sender wasn't just Ava. It was Ava J. Moore, with a tiny blue checkmark beside it. Her influencer account, not her private one. That meant she hadn't just messaged me. She wanted it visible, documented, possibly even screenshotted and leaked to garner sympathy if I lashed out. She hadn't broken character. Even now, she was performing. I closed the app. That night, I received another message, this one from Lena, my assistant. She'd been monitoring social media since the incident, not as a favor, but out of shared history. Lena had her own past, with a controlling sibling, and recognized a storm when she saw one. She forwarded a post Ava had made on her backup account, a black and white photo of herself curled up on a chaise lounge, makeup smudged, captioned, "Betrayal is never louder than when it comes from someone who used to whisper your secrets." The comment section was split. Some of her followers offered support. Others weren't so forgiving. One wrote, "Didn't you kick your sister out of the wedding she paid for?" Another, "Girl, you curated your karma. Now own it." Then came the shift. Brands began pulling away. A wellness tea line she'd partnered with removed her from their featured influencers. A skincare label quietly archived all her sponsored posts. And someone, an account I didn't recognize, posted a screen recording of Ava laughing at an event, saying, "She runs a landscaping thing. Basically just plays with dirt for rich people." It had been recorded months ago, but the internet doesn't forget. That clip hit 200,000 views by the next morning. I didn't smile, but I wasn't surprised. Later that day, Lena sent me another screenshot. Noah had liked the post, not publicly commented, just tapped like. It was the digital equivalent of stepping away without saying a word. I forwarded it to Ava. She didn't respond. 2 hours later, Lena forwarded another screenshot, this one from Ava's main page. She'd turned off all comments. Then came the email from her manager. The subject line, "Urgent, brand crisis support." She had accidentally CC'd me. She meant to blind copy. The email detailed Ava's declining engagement rates, the PR fallout, and a proposed strategy to salvage her image, including a potential reconciliation arc with her estranged but supportive sister. I was listed by name. I read the plan twice. She wanted to paint me as the misunderstood older sibling with a complicated but ultimately loving bond. One paragraph even proposed a podcast series titled Sisters Rewritten. She hadn't just used me for the wedding, she was about to do it again. This time for content, I replied directly to the manager. One line. Remove my name from every pitch. This story ends here. 10 minutes later, a new message appeared. Not from the manager, from Ava. That wasn't supposed to be sent to you. Please don't overreact. We can fix this. The language of entitlement. Even now, she thought the real mistake was the exposure, not the act itself. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a letter I'd been avoiding. It had arrived the week before, hand-delivered, thick envelope, embossed seal from my grandfather's estate lawyer. Inside, an amended will. 6 months before his death, he had made a change, without fanfare, without warning. The bulk of his trust, originally set to pass to Ava as the natural heir of the family's public legacy, had been redirected. To me, he had left a note with it, typed on his old Remington, Harper, because you worked for everything, not just posed beside it. I folded the letter and tucked it into the drawer beside my desk. Ava thought this war was still playing out in front of the audience. She didn't realize she'd already lost backstage. The letter arrived in a nondescript white envelope. No return. Address. Just my name printed in crisp serif letters. Harper Lawson. I knew who it was from before I even slit the seal open. Not because of the stationery, not because of the weight of the paper, but because of the timing. My grandfather never said much when he was alive. He didn't need to. His actions always arrived when words failed. Inside, folded with mathematical precision, was a legal document, a final will and testament. I'd already seen the original version years ago, in passing. Ava had been named sole heir to the family's remaining trust, some legacy investment accounts, property, a summer house in Ashland we hadn't visited since I was 20. Everyone accepted it as a given. She was the one who fit the image, the one who would carry the name forward. But this version was different. The beneficiary column now read, Harper Elaine Lawson. I reread it 3 times, waiting for the catch. There wasn't one. Alongside the document was a personal note, typed, dated 6 months before his death. Harper, I see more clearly as I grow quieter. You built something from the ground. You did not wait to be chosen. I once thought legacy was about preservation. I was wrong. It's about creation. Take this and do something with it. Something that grows. RLI folded the letter and set it beside me on the windowsill. Outside, the sun had started bleeding through the fog like a slow wound. That same day, Mom called again. I didn't pick up. She left a message. You need to stop this. You're tearing the family apart. I almost laughed, as if I hadn't already been surgically removed. An hour later, Ava called. Her voice on the voicemail was unrecognizable. No rage, no superiority, just something shrill and desperate trying to mask as control. I need to speak with you. We need to fix this before it goes any further. You don't know what you're doing. She didn't ask. She demanded. That's how she operated. Like politeness was optional when you were right. I texted her 2 words. Not interested. That night, Noah sent me a photo, Ava's last public post, an attempt at a soft rebrand. No apology, no ownership. Just a captioned image of her holding a cup of tea, looking contemplatively out a window. Growth is uncomfortable, but so is regret. The comment section was a battlefield. One follower wrote, Interesting take. From someone who used their sister's wallet and then threw her out. Another added, Nothing says growth, like deleting half your past and pretending you're the victim. But what caught my eye was the reply Noah left. It was short, just, narratives change, truth doesn't. It got more likes than the post itself. I hadn't expected that. I hadn't asked for it, and that made it all the more satisfying. Still, I knew this wasn't over. 2 days later, I received an official notice from Ava's lawyer. It was thinly veiled as a clarification request. They wanted confirmation on the inheritance, citing family confusion and estate disputes. I read between the lines easily. Ava had found out about the will, and now she was grasping at any loophole. I called the estate attorney, Mr. Godfrey, directly. "I assume you received the inquiry?" he asked. "I did," I said. "What's the play here?" He sighed. "Your sister's legal team is trying to suggest that your grandfather was under duress or impaired judgment when he changed the will." I stayed quiet. "I've reviewed everything," he added. "There are signed statements, medical evaluations, video logs. Your grandfather was very clear." "I'm not interested in dragging this out in court," I said flatly. "You won't have to. We'll shut this down. Quickly." But I knew Ava. She didn't fight fair. She didn't care about fairness. She cared about being seen winning. That night, she showed up at my office, unannounced, in heels, with fake tears painted so perfectly I could smell the performance before she even opened her mouth. "Harper," she began. "No, you don't even know what I was going to say." "I don't need to," I replied. "You're not here to apologize. You're here to negotiate." She blinked, that flash of something real beneath the powder and poise. "I don't want to fight anymore," she said. I tilted my head. "You mean now that the fight no longer favors you?" Her voice broke, not from emotion, but frustration. "I built everything from scratch. I've worked for years on that platform." "With my money," I said. "With my silence." She stepped forward. "You don't know what it's like to have your entire world fall apart in front of people who once worshipped you." I looked her dead in the eye. "No, Ava. I know exactly what that feels like. I just didn't pretend it was someone else's fault." She flinched. She wasn't used to being looked at without reverence or jealousy. Just clarity. Then she tried again. "We could go public, tell the story our way. A reconciliation arc. The internet loves that. Two sisters healing, redemption, forgiveness." "You want to package my pain," I said. "I want to survive," she hissed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. "I already did," I said. "You should try it sometime." Then I walked past her, left her standing in the greenhouse surrounded by the very life she always said was too messy for her aesthetic. She didn't follow me. The next day, I signed the final documents with Godfrey. The assets were transferred. Ava's silence followed, but it didn't feel like retreat. It felt like the eye of a storm still searching for wind. It ended not with a scream or a bang or another public unraveling, but with silence. A kind that didn't ache. A kind I had carved for myself. 2 weeks after Ava showed up in my greenhouse, she left Oregon. No announcement, no final attempt at redemption. Just a photo posted quietly from a new city, captioned, "Sometimes the best way to grow is to replant." Her comments were turned off. She hadn't tagged any brands. She had lost her audience. I didn't reply to the message she sent before she left. A final olive branch wrapped in ego. Maybe one day we can laugh about all this. There would be no shared laughter. Some wounds close without ceremony, without noise. They seal over clean, because they've been cauterized at the root. After she left, Mom sent a handwritten note. Not to apologize, but to reconnect. The kind of letter that dances around accountability, full of phrases like, "We all made mistakes," and "Let's not dwell on the past." She included a recipe I loved as a child. At the bottom, she'd written, "Family is still family." Folded the note and slid it into the same drawer that held my grandfather's will. Some history is best filed, not fed. I didn't answer. I never responded to Dad's last voicemail either. Just a clipped statement. "You've made your point. Let's move on." But I didn't do any of this to make a point. I did it to break a cycle. A few months later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a small framed photo of a pig in a flower crown. Clementine. A thank you card tucked behind the glass. Most memorable day of my life. Call me anytime. Gwen. I hung it in my office. Business thrived after that. Not because I went viral, but because I learned how to run my life with the same precision I brought to my designs. Remove the weeds, nourish the roots, and don't be afraid to cut back what no longer serves the space. Noah emailed once, just a quiet note that he'd officially filed for divorce. He said it wasn't messy, just final. He said he'd started volunteering at a local garden project. He signed it. I think I understand you now. That's all I wanted to say. We never met again. And that felt right. This entire chapter of my life closed without the validation I once thought I needed. And that, more than the inheritance, more than the exposure, was the real victory. Because for years, I tried to earn love by being useful. Now, I chose solitude over being used. I chose clarity over chaos. I chose myself. So, what did I learn? If you're watching this, if you're the quiet one, the dependable one, the one they only call when something needs fixing or funding, know this. You don't owe anyone your silence, your savings, or your seat at a table that only welcomes you when convenient. Loyalty that demands your invisibility is not love. It's control, and revenge doesn't always look like fire and fury. Sometimes it's a well-trained pig, a pulled invoice, and walking away without looking back. Sometimes it's choosing peace over performance. Sometimes the real power is not proving them wrong, but proving yourself right. If this story meant something to you, if it hit somewhere you've never said out loud, hit that subscribe button. Not for me, for you. So this kind of truth keeps finding people who need to hear it because I've got more stories to tell. And this was just the beginning.